Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to another workshop with Dianna Shyne.
Hi,
Summer is over,
everyone.
sorta. I'm joined by
Yeah,
my good friend and colleague, Dianna Shyne. Dianna, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Summer was fantastic, and I'm really excited to be back, though. This is going to be lots of fun.
Yeah, me too. And a lot of people in the chat as well, Dianna, are excited to see you again. They said, yeah, Jen says, we missed you, Dianna.
Oh,
Um,
I missed you too.
Yeah, lots of people missed you during the summer. So I see lots of familiar faces, of course. So welcome, everybody. So happy to have you here this morning. Um, if you're new, maybe this is your first workshop. Basically, we're going to have a 2-hour workshop about with Dianna. She's going to do some
Mhm.
teaching on fields and farms. And then she's going to paint a demonstration. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A so you can ask your questions directly to Dianna.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fantastic. And
Yeah.
um, only one quick announcement in a week and a half. So not this Monday, but the Monday after, we're doing the Radiant Acrylic Masterclass. So if you have not signed up for that yet, check your email. You should have a link in there. Be sure to sign up for that. It's always a lot of fun. It's totally free, and we'd love to see you there. So, all right,
Mhm.
Diana, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing today?
Yeah, I thought that fields and farms would be a really great way to talk about perspective because so many of the field lines go off in perspective and barns and outbuildings are in perspective. So if you've been a little afraid of that word, some people are, I try to break it down so it's not as intimidating. The main thing is make it look good
Yes.
and leave yourself a little room for happy accidents and for some spontaneity. So, just because I'm giving you some rules and tools for perspective doesn't mean you have to, you know, be lockstep with it. It just means here's some tools you can use if things aren't looking right for you. So, I really hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed putting this together for you. And I'll be on the chat and I'll also be here afterwards. So just know everything is good. Your art is yours, and you can use the tools or not use them. It's your choice, but here they are.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana. So we will jump into this, guys, and we will see you on the other side. All right.
Mhm.
One,
Okay.
Dianna Shyne here. Welcome to another 2-hour workshop with Acrylic University. This time we're studying fields and farms. I'm really excited to bring this to you because it's very close and dear to my heart. I spent a lot of time out here in the Skagit Valley exploring, from early March when the daffodils are starting to come up, through tulips, through the fields and crops that come in this valley. The valley seems like it is a little bowl that holds light. And I absolutely love the images from here. But no matter where they are, farms bring us the food and the flowers and the delight of life. And they are out under the open sun and they take us visually far, far into the distance. Even in the sky and on the land, we see vast distances and it's very inspiring. A lot of artists use farms and fields as the energy in their painting to talk about distance, to talk about 3 dimensions, and to give us that sense of the vastness of space. Even really impressionistic artists can use the ideas of 3 dimension and of perspective to draw us into their painting and to make us feel like we're a part of it all, to show us life from their perspective. But that word perspective is scary to some people. It shouldn't be. It really is just how we see distance, how we human beings see distance out of our eyes all the time. If we were not able to do that, we would bump into things, trip over ledges. We have to be able to judge how far away things are and how distant. And the very first tool we use to do that is this thing that we're calling diminishing size of similar objects, which simply means when 2 things that should be the same size in a flat image are not, like these 2 cows. We can see that that little cow is a lot smaller than the cow in front. When we know that those two cows are the same size, and yet one is visually smaller, we see it as farther away. But there's another element to that. I'll put up two pumpkins side by side. They're the exact same pumpkin. And I'll move one up and make it smaller. Now that pumpkin is higher on the picture plane, meaning further up the painting, and it's smaller, and so it reads as further away. We know they're the same size and shape because they're photographs of the exact same pumpkin, but one looks farther away because it's higher up and smaller. That is called diminishing size of similar objects and height on the canvas. Those two things will help you create perspective in your paintings. Here's another thing that I want to show you from a couple of my paintings. We can see the hay bales on the right get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and higher on the canvas as they go back in space. We can really see that diminishing size because they get smaller and higher. On this painting on the right, we see the man on the right standing tall with his basket of tulips on his shoulders. And I've measured him out at about 3 inches. This man, just off to the side of him is about 1 inch high. Is there a giant in the room or a dwarf? No. We understand this very clearly, that the man is further away. He's standing farther back. He's not smaller. He's just further away. And that gives us the clue. Diminishing size. Those two people, when standing side to side, are probably about the same size and higher on the canvas. Easy. What an easy idea to wrap our heads around. Perspective isn't a scary word. It's just how we see out of our eyes. How we humans determine distance. So here's a little example of that. I have made parallel lines. Some of my students get freaked out when I use these math terms. Believe me. I was drawing pictures on my peachy during math. I was not studying. But these are parallel lines that are exactly the same width apart on a painting panel. And now I'm going to move part of the panel closer to us. And we can see very clearly that the edge of the panel that's closer to us is bigger, is physically, measurably bigger than the part that's farther away from us. We can look at these rulers and we can understand that things that should be parallel, they're exactly the same width apart. When we move them closer to us, when we move one side closer to us, that side gets bigger, and the side that's further away from us is smaller. And it looks like the lines are coming together. So when we're looking at the lines going horizontally, the same thing is happening. The ones in the front are getting look bigger than the ones further back in space. It is a beautiful optical illusion to use in your paintings, just making the lines bigger when they come closer to you and smaller when they go away. To illustrate this, let's step onto some railroad tracks, shall we? Okay, I took the risk. It is a busy railroad track. However, we know that railroad tracks should be the same width apart because the wheels are the same width apart. But when we're standing on the track and looking down the track, we can see they get narrower as they get higher on the canvas. So when I draw a line down that track and I draw a line down the other track, something happens. Those two lines hit each other. They converge. And at the point where the lines converge, that is called eye level. That level with the viewer's eyes is called eye level. And at that little point where those parallel lines converge, that is called the vanishing point. Right there. I've drawn a little circle around it. That's the vanishing point.
And we need to remember these words. Take a screenshot or whatever you need to do, but just think about those lines that should be the same width apart are now crossing, creating a sense of depth, creating the optical illusion of depth. So let's take a look at how we find eye level. A lot of people confuse eye level and horizon. They would say perhaps that the horizon is the top of these hills because it's the edge between land and sky. But eye level is a little different. Eye level is what is level with the viewer's eyes. The person taking this picture, for instance, me with my camera lens is the thing that's at eye level. Eye level is always level with the viewer's eye. Whether you're looking up or down or straight across, eye level is level with the viewer's eye. And all the lines that should be the same distance apart now converge right in my eye. No matter where I'm standing in the road, everything in that road lines up that I see out of my eyes, lines up with my eye level. That's why when we're painting or drawing in perspective, it's exciting because we're showing people our perspective, our point of view, what we see when we look out of our eyes. It's so exciting. We can share with somebody what we see when we look out of our eyes by engaging this tool of perspective. Here I am, oh boy, standing in another busy railroad track. Okay, this time I'm between the trains. But we're looking at something called one-point perspective, where every line is lined up and every line ends at one point in space. So here I am, standing here between the tracks, and I'll just draw a straight line down every single parallel line in this place, and we can see all those things end up right in my eyeball at my eye level and at the vanishing point, which is actually the eye I'm looking out of. There's my eye level. That spot, that one spot on the painting is called the vanishing point. And we'll look at how important that vanishing point is in creating our farms and fields painting in just a minute. But I just want to move over. Oops, a train's coming. I got out of the way really fast. Oh, dear. So look at the edge of this moving train. It's coming down. The train is moving along this track, so it's parallel with the track. Here I am, and here's my eye level, and guess what? Even the moving train is vanishing. The side of that train is vanishing at the vanishing point, as are all the tracks, the sides of the building, all the sides of every building, the edge of the platform, the edge of the pavement, even the shadow. Everything is vanishing right at that one point. Everything converges. Some of them come from above, some of them come from below, but they all converge at eye level. Isn't that cool? You can draw almost anything when you have them at eye level. When you know about eye level and vanishing point, you can draw almost anything. Here's a field that I was looking at with my grandson. He slipped under the barbed wire and ran up that road and said, I want to go talk to the farmer. He was 2 years old. But from my point of view, I was looking straight up that road. Then I stepped to the side to see if I could find a way through the barbed wire, and I saw a completely different scene. Here's the two scenes side by side. One with me standing right in front of the road, and the other with me off to the side. And we can see that the scene changes when my point of view changes. When I move over, the lines of perspective move with me. How exciting is that? So here's 3 different photos I took of the same field and house on the same day.
When I stood over here, my eye level was about at the top of this field, and all of the lines of the field ended up at this vanishing point in my eye. When I stood here, here's my eye level about the same place, and the lines of the field ended up at the vanishing point at my eye level, where I put my camera lens. And finally here, at this last one, there's my eye level at about the same point, and all the lines of the field end up at the vanishing point at my eye level. Now, what I want you to do is look at these three images. On the first image, here in the top, all the lines of perspective are pointing out of the, they're pointing out of the painting that way. There we go. They're pointing out of the painting. It's almost as if those lines are directing your eye to follow me outside of the picture plane. They're taking you out of the show. In the second one, I'm standing inside the plane of the picture, and the lines are directing you up that plowed path, but your eye is not directed to a focal point, which is that house. It's actually, those lines are directing you away from the house. In the third image, we can see I'm standing directly in front of the house, and all the lines of perspective are taking the viewer's eye, not just my eye, but showing the viewer that I want them to look up these rows, up these field rows, to the focal point at this house. If my focal point were not the house, I could choose a different point of view. It's all in how we want our viewer to see this image. But one of the things we might want to avoid is directing our viewer off the page. Like here, I took this photo of the tulips in the Skagit Valley, and I cropped it. You know, I chose to end the photograph right there, where all the lines of perspective are going off the edge. And what that does is it sends the viewer off the edge of the painting or the photo as well. The viewer's eye just goes zoop, right over there, and it's like I have a big sign on my picture that says, "Hey, you guys, go look over there at the photo next door. Get out of here." So what do? What is a really good thing you can do is to just simply crop. Crop so you don't have that point, like a little arrow pointing you out. The lines still gently take you out, but you can almost feel like you can come back in again. And another thing that's happening in this one, you can see that these bands, remember my little panel that I had drawn lines on? The bands got wider as they came forward. So these bands of flowers are getting wider as they come forward, and then narrower and narrower as they go back in space. So it actually guides you in. Those bands actually act as a way to guide you up and into the painting. Isn't that cool? Much more interesting, too, than being thrown off the side. So we're going to talk for a minute about these flower fields and perspective. I spent a lot of time in the Skagit Valley during tulip time. I love this time of year. There's daffodils, then there's tulips, and then later on in the season there'll be fields with all kinds of different flowers and vegetables and fruit. It's just amazing to see the progression through the growing season. But I want to show you a few tips and tricks to making your fields really feel like they just go on forever. And that's one of the magical things about being allowed into these fields, is you can wander through them. You just feel like they go on and on forever. So when we draw a line up the side of the tulips, we're going to see something happening. All all of these lines are basically ending. I mean, this is organic. The things are growing. They're not like constructed out of steel and concrete. They're growing organic things. And yet, because they were planted in rows, those rows still end at a single point. And that point, it's just above what we would call the horizon. That eye level is, if we look at these teeny tiny people over here, we can see it's at their eye level too, because I'm about the same height as other people. It doesn't matter if they're teeny tiny way in the back. Our eye levels are going to be about the same unless they're standing on a hill or in a ditch. So I can use them to help create the eye level that I need. The other thing that happens is when we see these edges of the field off to the side, we do not see any rows. And so that's because the rows of tulips are overlapped so tightly that we can't see the rows anymore. So we can see, the only row we can see right up dead center is the one right in front of us. The other ones, the flowers begin to overlap, so you can't see dead center up the middle. This is what it looks like. We've got all those rows of tulips going back. We have the two sides that we cannot see the rows to, and that one triangular patch of the path that's going right up in front of us. Here's a wonderful painting by Skagit artist Al Currier, and we can see that he has done this in his rows, drawing you back. The tulip row in the front is the one that leads you right up, straight up this beautiful field of tulips. Here's the edges of the rows. And here's that space right in the middle where we can see both the path and the whole tulip field, because there's no overlapping happening there. It's just we're looking straight dead down the road. The other ones are all overlapping in some way, so we can see less and less and less of the edges. Here's our eye level, and here's those side panels, the side edges where the tulips are so condensed and overlapped, we can't see the rows anymore. Here I am, looking out of my eye, looking at what Al Currier looked at. I'm seeing this field from his perspective, from his point of view. Isn't that exciting? I think so. So here's something that happens with my students. I'll give them a reference photo of the Skagit tulip fields or something like that, and they come up with a block-in that looks something like this. There's rows, there's green stuff, there's paths in between the rows of flowers, there's a sky. And that assumption has got them to this point, but there's something that always looks off. And what that off thing is, when I strip away the sky, is that there is no lining up with perspective. There's no vanishing point. There's no eye level. All those lines just go higgledy-piggledy off into the universe. But if we rearrange them and we look at this, this looks like the rows are flat. They're not perfect because I tried to do it digitally and I'm not that good. But when I strip off the sky, we can see that all the lines end up at a vanishing point on an eye level in perspective. And that makes them look flat. That makes them look believable. When we think about these tulips and we think about how we are going to construct this as a painting, first thing, someone's given you a reference photo, you need to determine where your eye level is. Now, if I'm standing out here in the tulip field, my eye level is not level with the top of the barn. So I need to look around my environment for some clue, something that will give me an idea of eye level. So way over here, I see a teeny tiny person and they're standing on the same level that I am. So I will take a look there. That little teeny person, I'm going to move eye level down to their eye level. Let's see if this works. Now, I'm just putting a line up along the edges of some of these tulip rows, and guess what? they end at eye level. Ta-da! Done. We need to determine eye level first, and then we can start laying in our field rows. Oh, wait a minute. Why is there a peachy on here? If some of you are as old as me, you will remember this peachy from holding your papers at school. Mine always had drawings all over it. And this was the drawing I did in about 5th or 6th grade. I would draw a square. And then I would draw another square off center to it and connect up the corners. I did this all over my peachy all the time because I learned this fun optical illusion trick. Look at that. It looks like a 3-dimensional cube. And I drew this and drew this and drew this until I learned something about perspective. I did not pay attention to my math teacher. I was drawing cubes. But here's something you can do to draw an effective cube in space is create an eye level. Pick one. And a vanishing point. Now take the corners of your cube and attach them up. Just do this along with me if you can. Attach them up and then create a top and a side. I didn't put the middle one through because it was just confusing. Too many lines. Now that went by really fast. I'll do another one. And I will attach the corners and have them all end at the vanishing point. And I made a side and a top attaching to those lines. Now I'll erase all of the extra lines. And now I have 2 cubes that not only look 3-dimensional, but they also are turned in space. They look like they're on the same row. One is lower and larger, and it looks like it's bigger and closer. One is higher and smaller, and it looks like it might even be the same. If I was to walk down this invisible road, it might even be the same size of a block building as the first one. But we can see it's smaller. It's higher up on the picture plane, so it does look smaller. And we can see that these 2 blocks actually relate to each other in space, and they look 3-dimensional. That's a lot to ask of a flat surface, and we just did it. So why did I do that? Because these field rows are not 2-dimensional. They are 3-dimensional. So when I put my eye level in, I can create a box just like I did. The front of the row of tulips is the front of that box, and the top and sides connect up with a vanishing point. Look at that. Now you can see that your rows of tulips are not just lines of red and green and brown on a piece of paper. They are 3-dimensional forms that look like boxes. They're not exactly like boxes because they're organic. They're not made from concrete or steel. They're organic, and so they mess it up a little bit. But for the most part, you can see that each of these rows of tulips is a 3-dimensional thing, and it fits inside this box. That is exciting to me. That is a way to make things look, no matter how you paint them, abstracty, impressionistic, photorealistic, they will look more convincing if you create them to look 3D using this tool of perspective. How cool is that? I love that. Uh-oh. Here we are back on the railroad tracks, and oh no, a rabbit has jumped onto the tracks. Oh no, a giant rabbit has jumped onto the tracks. This is a story about how to make things look like they belong in space. And one of the ideas you need to remember is that when things are higher, we think of them as further away. This rabbit, this giant rabbit, oh my gosh, he is a monster. I would not want to encounter him in a dark alley. But when I move him down, we can see it's exactly the same size. It is exactly the same size as rabbit number 1. When I put him back, he instantly becomes Monster Rabbit again. So how do we create a second rabbit that is exactly in perspective and the right size and shape for our space? I am going to follow the lines of perspective up, and then there is my eye level, my vanishing point. And so what I'm going to do is shrink rabbit number 2 so he fits inside those lines of perspective. And look at that. Now that rabbit looks like he's going to get squished the same way as rabbit number 1 on the side of the railroad track. But he fits in. He belongs there because he's the right size. I'm going to do that with our cows from our first demo here. If we think about that idea of things that are closer to us, are lower on the picture plane and bigger, I'm going to make this cow bigger and bring it further down on the picture plane. You can see that she looks closer to us. She's coming right up. If I make her higher on the picture plane and smaller, she's further away. It's so easy. It's just as easy as that. You can't get any more simple than that. Higher and smaller, further away. But here's how you do it if you really want that animal to fit in. Let's imagine I want another version of this cow over here, further away. I want to add one more feature. So here's what I do. Find my eye level, make a line, find out how big this animal is in space. And then I'm going to run a line of perspective between the noses and bums of these other cows. Now I'm going to take our little cow out and squish it in between the lines of perspective. And look, it's like magic. It fits right in. Isn't that great? Now you know the secret of making anything, whether it's people, whether it's houses, whether it's cows or trees or cabbages. You can make them fit in absolutely perfectly. Oh no, buildings. We can't really talk about farms without having a little conversation about farm buildings. And they're not as hard to make as you think. So I'm going to just talk you through it a little bit. You need to practice. Practice is the key to everything, and especially in drawing and art. Practice is your key. But first I want to show you an idea about a three-dimensional shape, that is that rectangular barn or house shape. I've got a flat piece of wood, the same shape as the side of my rectangular block. And as I turn that rectangular block, you can see the long side of the block was getting shorter and shorter. Now it's getting longer and longer as I turn it. So you can see that now it is getting shorter, going the other way. This line on the block that's closest to us is biggest. Everything else is smaller. As you tilt and turn the block, you can see that it changes size and shape. The long side gets shorter, the short side gets longer. The central line right here is bigger because it's closer to us. If we can remember that things that are closer to us are bigger, this is really going to help us create a barn. Here is the first step of creating a building, a farm building on your farm painting, and that is to find the eye level. So you're given a photo reference, and what I would do is take out a straight edge and move it up and down this barn. When I look at the siding along the edge of my straight edge, I can see that it's tilting down. When I look at the edge of my roof line along this straight edge, I can see that it's tilting down. When I slowly move this straight edge down, I can see where all the siding and or architectural elements are completely 100% flat with the ruler, that's eye level. Where everything flattens out. That is a really good clue. That's like the best clue in this whole tutorial is where everything flattens out, that's your eye level. There's some other ways you can do it, like how high would I be standing against this fence? Where would my eyes come? If I were standing against the building, you can do that too. But this way of just taking a ruler and just drawing it down the side of your picture until all the shingles and all the architectural bits flatten out, that's a really good one too. Here is our eye level right here. Now I'm going to show you a little trick about two-point perspective. When you see both sides of your house, of your building that are going away from you in space, just like we did with our block. I'm going to wait till, oh, here we go. Turn the block till it's about the same shape as our house. Here's eye level. We'll put eye level right in that spot where everything flattened out. I made the barn really small because sometimes the lines of perspective are outside of your picture plane. Sometimes, like I used to tape paper onto the edge of my canvas so I could get my lines of perspective all the way out. And I will still do that if I need to. So I simply take a straight edge and follow the line of my roof edge and the top of the roof, find out where it hits eye level. That's the vanishing point for side number one. This is side number one, the side that's in shadow, side number one. Then I follow the roof line, the edge of the window, or any other architectural feature down until it converges onto eye level, till the points connect. And that is vanishing point number two. This is called two-point perspective, meaning that rectangle is turned so both sides of the shape, both sides of the barn are going away from you. Even the bottom of the barn connects up with eye level. So you can find those points, those vanishing points, the edges of the windows, the tops of the windows. Everything should connect up with your vanishing point. And no matter how you want to paint it, in this really loosely and impressionistically painted painting by Sergei Bongart, we can see that he utilized this tool. Two of his lines of architectural lines, the edge of the stair and the edge of the siding, connect up. The siding, everything flattens out right here at eye level. But all of the architectural features in this very loosely painted house line up with this idea of perspective. There's an eye level and a vanishing point. And no matter how photorealistic you want to go or how loose, if you utilize this tool of eye level and vanishing point, you can be much more convincing in the painting you want to create. Look at how everything lines up so perfectly. And it is a very convincing little cabin. Same thing's happening in this painting by William Hook. And if we look very carefully up here on the edges of Ramona Youngquist's barn, same thing's happening there. Everything is lining up with perspective and making it a much more effective painting. I found this little chart online and I thought it was so simple. I've never known the names of barns or farm buildings before. And I just thought, well, what do you know? I learned something new here. You don't need to memorize these, but take a screenshot if it's interesting to you. But I think what is interesting is this. I have tried to paint and draw this style of barn. They're all over the place where I live. This English gambrel style of barn with the roof that does this and then this, and I have made a mush out of those roof lines over and over and over. I just couldn't get it until I saw this demonstrated. Here's that bottom part of the barn we can see how big it is. And now we're going to make a line between the corners. And that shows us where dead center in that is. Right there, dead center. And then I'm going to put another square on top, like a birthday cake with a candle. What I'm going to do now is attach this top of my birthday cake to the first side, the top of the birthday cake to the bottom edge, and look, we have that roof line perfect. They're all different heights, and they come in all different proportions. But if you get that birthday cake right, you're going to have your barn. Here's one of those barns of that shape and size, painted by Michelle Usabelli. Great painter. Love her impressionistic artwork. So here's that rectangle at the bottom, the base of the barn. Here's the rectangle at the top. Oops, I forgot to put my lines through to show me the middle. Let's see if we get it. Yep, there's the middle. Goes right up to that top. Birthday cake with a candle. We attach the top of that peak to the sides, and then the edge of the side downward, and we have a beautiful barn shape. How easy is that now? It took all of the proportion and mystery and stupidness out of it and made it much easier for me to understand. Finally, I could do the top of a barn. There are all kinds of shapes and sizes of barns that we encounter out when we're painting fields and farms. And we can apply this similar idea to almost any of them. And in any given field, there could be half a dozen different styles, but we can still apply this same principle. Let's take a look. Here's a Dutch barn. I'm going to create that rectangle that is the base of the barn. I'm noticing that from the base to the top, it's a little over 3 times taller. The top is a little over 3 times taller than the base. So when I put that line through the middle, I'm making it 3 times taller than the base, so that when I make a line straight down to the corners, it's exactly the right height. That is so easy. Here is another one of these barns, and it is also in perspective. We can see a side of it is tilting away from us a little bit. We're not standing straight on. We're standing off to the side a little bit, and we can see some perspective. So first thing we're going to do is find the base of the barn, that rectangle. And the birthday cake top, let's make sure we've got that all right. By making the X from corner to corner, we find that center piece. And there's the peak of my roof. This one has a rounded edge. And so I had to draw a rounded edge, which was harder with my drawing tool on the computer, but I did it. But the other thing we need is our eye level. And our eye level is right here at the edge. We can see if we were standing in this doorway where our eyes would be. And I made a line from the roof and made it attached to eye level somewhere out there. And we notice that our vanishing point is outside of the picture plane because I didn't take a panorama shot. It's just one shot. But here you can see the side of the roof attaches, the side of the windows, the bottom edge of the windows, and even the bottom of the barn, all attached to that vanishing point. So now not only do we have the front of the barn in proportion, but we have the side of the barn in perspective. And it's not really that hard. It takes practice. And you'll need to if you haven't done this before, you'll need to rewind this a few times. In Acrylic University, there is a very large course that I've written on perspective. And a lot of these same images are in there. And there are lots of exercises you can do to get better at drawing in perspective. But I'm really hoping that you find the same joy and fun in creating this optical illusion of 3 dimension, and that you have fun in creating these structures in your farm and field paintings. You can use the same idea for any style building and any kind of a field. And that said, I think it's time to paint. So let's try out some of these ideas. Let's paint.
Today we're going to be painting a beautiful barn in a field of dill. Sprinklers are on. It's sunset. It's 10 minutes before sunset. I went through all of my photo references and could not find the 3 things I wanted, which was a beautiful barn in a beautiful field with rows with beautiful light. So I went out and I photographed this barn on Sauvie Island, which is an island just outside of Portland. So today we've got this beautiful barn, and I'm going to show you a couple tricks about drawing with perspective. First thing I want to do though is get in a horizon, not a horizon, the edge between the field and everything that isn't field. I've printed up my barn a little bit larger than I'm going to want to draw it on here, but I do want to just check some proportions. This bottom part of the barn, then I'm going to make a line down from the edge of this where the roof tilts down. Oh, I should be using my ruler, shouldn't I? So here's the bottom part of the barn, and I'm going to just use my pencil as a measuring device. And first of all, I want to measure width to height. It's the same width as it is high. That's good to know. Now I'm going to measure how high to make this next square. So I'm going to put my finger on the edge of my pencil, put the tip of my pencil, put the finger on, and that is 1 bottom square high. So I've got 1, almost 2, not quite 2. And then when I measure this little top part, it's about 3/4 of that. So now I've got an idea of the size of this barn, and I can make a square on here. I had to gesso over my first one because the camera stopped right in the middle of what I wanted to do. So if I want the face of my barn to be this wide, that means the top of the barn's going to be here, which is probably right where I want it. Then we have a side of a barn. We have a beautiful silo, and I want that not to be right in the center of my painting. It's slightly off. That's good. I might move everything over just a bit. So here's the top of the barn, sides of the barn, that front face. Here's the top. Silo is just over here. And I'll get that erased in a minute. Oh, I can erase it with some white paint, I guess, can't I? Piece of cat hair, get that out of there. All right, here we go. Get some of those ugly lines out. Now, this barn, this is the square it's gonna sit in, the front face of it. So I'm gonna make that X between the corners, and that's gonna give me right up the middle, the very center, so I don't get things wonky. Corner to corner. Now, the center of the roof pitch is right here. Yeah, I had it off. Now remember, about 3/4 of an inch. So, but I'm going to do 1 and almost 2 to the top of this next square. How wide is it? Compared to the rest of the barn. I'm going to measure the width. The other thing I can do is lay my pencil on this angle. Transfer that angle up. And there's the edge. Now my next angle just connects. There we go. Down here. And all of this internal stuff can go away in a minute. Didn't get that quite right. I want it right from the start. The next thing I want to do is start on my perspective, and I have a little trick. I get out a string, I cut the string to be about the width of my paper. I've got it tied onto a little push pin. And here's the printout, the black and white printout of what I want, and I'm noticing where I put the edge of the ground is not, all the lines don't come to a point right there. They come to a point in a different spot, about here. So I'm going to put my push pin into my canvas, or my panel. I'm using a panel right there. And that's going to determine the angle of my roof lines and the angle of my rows. First row. Now these rows are wiggly. They didn't get plowed perfectly, or they didn't grow perfectly or something. So I'm not going to use a straight edge on them. I'm going to move this over, and I'm seeing where the line intersects with the edge of my canvas. I cropped my picture so that it would be what I wanted to see on the canvas. Now remember, these guys are not going to have really definable lines, but I want this first row is like almost right up the middle, or this path in the dill. There's another path. I'm just following this line down. And then there's some more dill. And there's another path. And there's some more dill. It was so fragrant. Then there's another path, or a row, I should say. Oops, more dill. Got off a little bit, but I'm going to be okay because I'm going to use paint to fix. And then there's the top of the last row. This is all upright. You can see those upright sticks. There's the top of this. This is all bright. And then the row goes horizontally for some reason. So we're seeing across the tops of the dill here. Now, I'm going to lay this on, because they plowed. It doesn't always happen like this. Sometimes the rows are offset from the barn, but this time the barn and the rows are in perspective with each other. I'm making the top of the roof line, and this time I'm going to use a ruler with this and make sure that the string turns properly, or I'm going to get a wrong angle. So I'm going to put my ruler right on that edge, and this will be the top edge of the barn going away from us. Here's that next edge of the barn going away from us. the next edge of the barn going away from us. The bottom edge of the barn. Here's the silo, and the silo comes up beyond the top of the barn. So let's get that silo up. Beyond the edge of the top of the barn, it's a little wider. I need to make it wider. So, sorry silo, we're getting wider. Edge of the roof comes right about here. And then I'm going to follow this angle to connect. Follow this angle down, barn. Ta-da. I'm going to use a little bit of white paint to fill in that line. There we go. Get rid of that awkward line. Now I have my perspective. And back here, there's a little line of more grass and stuff. Over here, this dill kind of covers all the bottoms of this. Oops, I took my pin away too soon because there's those 4 little tops on the top of here. So I'm just going to make another line across the top of the barn where these 4 things come, whatever those thingies are called. Someone out there will know. There is a shed for storing things. There is a little tree that I'm hooking behind all of this, and a bit of land beyond. Then on the other side of this, we're looking up at it, so there's going to be a slight loop. The tree I don't like right where it hits, so I'm changing. I want to make a little bit of it on the other side here. Just a bit. The trees on Southie Island are amazing. Huge, gigantic, and there's giant oaks. It's just an absolutely beautiful place that's filled with sunlight. Okay, I have my barn drawn on, and I like the proportions. I like where it sits. This will be in shadow. There is a shadow of this silo, and it falls along the shape of the roof. I like that. All right, I'm gonna mix a few colors, and then we can get started painting. This was fun, and the barn is looking pretty good. I'm excited. First of all, there's a lot of different colors of green, and so I have a variety of different colors of blue and yellow on here. I don't normally have this many paints on my canvas, but today I have yellow oxide, and it's going to make a really muted, dull green with my anthraquinine endanthrone or endanthrene blue. We're going to get the color of these evergreen trees in the back here. Plus some of the shadow is just really blue, 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 blue. So because the sky and the light is so very warm. We're 10 minutes before sunset, and the light on here is warm. So what I'm going to do to create that warm light is I am going to mix a whole bunch of this yellow oxide with my white. So everything that is warm light is going to have a note of this color. I could have used like a titanium buff, but that would be adding another color pigment. I'd rather not add one more color pigment, so I just made this the color of my lights, and that is going to be beautiful. Now I have a really, really, really bright yellow-green. It's almost this color, pure yellow. So I'm going to leave this Dairylide yellow as is for some of the bright tops of the dill. And then I have some really bright greens mixed in. So I'm using my Dairylide yellow and my phthalo blue. I have a little drop of, it's not a little drop, I have a drop of phthalo green. I'm not sure I'm going to use it. I put it out here in case. I'm liking the darks, the mid values, the lights. There's actually going to be another lighter green with not a lot of white in it. Maybe a little bit. So I'll use, when I'm adding white, I'm going to use the warm light. Now I'm going to mix the color of the shadow on the barn. It's a really beautiful, cool shadow. The light is fading. Ooh, this is anthraquinine blue and white just by itself. I love that color for the shadow of the barn. And what else do I have? I have the light on the side of the barn. I have a shadow on the side of the silo, and for some reason, and I'll tell you what reason that is in a minute, it's a very beautiful violet color, and part of it is red violet. Ooh, look at that. Nice, nice, nice. We also have the sky, which has a touch of orange in it. So I'm just adding a little bit of orange or red to my light color. Oh, that had a bit of grubbiness. Get rid of that. And then there is a little bit of phthalo green in the sky as well. It's right where the sky is changing to a different color, not quite blue, because the sunset is really orange. There is a different color in the sky. Okay, I think I'm ready to start laying down colors, but I'm gonna use a warm orange wash to start with. I'm gonna use this little 2-inch brush I got at the paint store. It's a Princeton 2-inch. I think that'll make a really nice wash. Lots of water on the brush. The only time I'm going to put water on my paintbrush is now. And I don't want to cover up my drawing, but I do want to get this warm feeling on here, the warm light. So lots of water, because that's going to make the paint transparent. This is the only time I add this much water to my paint. Anytime else, it flattens the paint out, and I love a nice, lovely, rich, thick color. So taking my paper towel, and I'm going to blot away where the lights are. I did not draw in those little things on the top of the barn yet. I'll paint them in. If I need to draw them in, I can draw them in later, right on top of the stuff. That's light. This little square on the barn is light. If we want to put those sprinkler marks in, which I think are kind of fun, very summery. We can put them in there light. Now I'm going to mix up a darker color because I'm going to put in my darks as well. While this is setting up, my darks will go in, and then I will have a clear path what I'm doing. So I'm going to mix up some dark, which will be my primary magenta and my anthraquinine blue with some water. Not as much water as I used for the lights or the mid values. Here we go. This is dark. That is all in shadow right now. There's a little sliver of dark here. There is some dark, and I'm making it wiggly, not just straight line because it's growing organically and not in a straight line. There's some dark here. There's some dark right here in the corner. Dark that goes not all the way up. I don't mind that the paint is running. I think that's kind of fun. Okay, a little more dark for the trees in the background. For under this for the shadow shape here. And it's turning green and purple and all kinds of colors because it's mixing with my wet light color. And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to let it go ahead and mix. I'm having fun with this idea. There's lots of light green. I love the energy of this coming up, and it doesn't point straight to here, but what it does do is it comes up, it turns a corner right here, and comes over to it in a little bit more of a zigzagging way, which I really like. Shadow, dark. There's some darks. Ooh, there's dark right under here. The stems of those dills. The stems of the dill. Dark in there. I think we're ready to put some paint down. I think that will be fun. I'm gonna get out a few paintbrushes. All right, let's just blot a few of those drips off. I've got out my paintbrushes. I've got a number 10, a number 4, and a number 6 flat. And I'm gonna start with my number 10. It's my whitest. And I'm gonna start with a color that I'm pretty sure about. And I will have to go over this again because this is wet. I'm just wanting to get this shape in. So I can see it. I did miss a color. It's that brilliant orange of the rooftop. I'm going to add both yellows and a little white and some of this primary magenta. This brilliant orange only happens in this one spot right there. Well, actually 2 spots, right there and there. Then it turns a corner and it gets a little darker up here. I'm going to get started massing in these darks, and there is a lot of darks. So anthraquinine blue, yellow oxide, and a touch of my red, and that is going to make a beautiful rich dark for back here. And again, it's wet, so I'll need to go over it a second time. Darks. I'm going to layer my lights and my mid values over this. So I'm going to go ahead and be a little sloppy with these darks. Because I'm going to come back. Right now I'm just doing a block in, laying them in. There's all kinds of other stuff going on here. that I'm going to want. Ooh, that comes out. It's like a little wiggle in the force. You know, when it comes to field rose, one of the things is that nature has done stuff. You know, maybe a dog ran through, or one of the plants got extra frisky, or who knows what's been happening. But, you know, maybe the guy on the tractor took a sip of coffee and he bobbled. You know, there's all kinds of things that go on. But what I want to do is get this main dark in. And I'm adding red to the dark because the light is so yellow that the shadows will have a note of purple in them. I might even go totally purple where the shadows are really dark. Let's see how that is once this stuff has a chance to set up. Little bit, little bit, little bit, a lot bit. The mid-value green is not nearly enough. So I'm going to mix another mid-value green that's not quite as brilliant as the phthalo, but still every bit as beautiful. It's a mixture of these two blues, anthraquinone and phthalo, and both yellows. So now I have a mid-green. And I'm going to just pop it down in here where things are turning. And I will add the light green on top when everything is dry. It's really hard to see the difference in this recording between the mid-value-y dark greens and the really dark greens, but it will show up more when the paint is less transparent. So as I add layers and layers, you'll be able to see those transitions a little bit more, but they'll be subtle. Turning planes. Oh, this is so much fun. So I'm going to turn off my camera for a minute, get this dried, so that I can come back in here and get these absolutely the way I want them. I think I need to reduce the angle of this roof just a little bit, which would just be bringing it down to here. That just gives me the tiniest sliver up here, but that's okay. So when I come back with this dried, I'll fix the roof on the barn. It's just soaking wet, so we'll get it dry. Okay. Time passes. Let's see if I can get this straighter. And I think it's almost dry, so I'm going to come back in with my number 10 brush and really give this what I think it needs. I'm also going to take my smaller brush first, and I'm going to use my brush to draw these edges. It'll get covered up. But I want these edges drawn in so I don't lose my barn. There's where those windows go. This is dark, dark, dark. All right. I just didn't want to lose my barn. Now I'm going to go back to my number 10 brush and finish this block in. this really dark color. Oh, now it's dark. Water makes it transparent. I'm going to add some scratching to it, and that will add texture. It will be covered up in a later installment, but right now it just is going to add a little texture into the depth. Now, this color, I'm adding it to it so it kind of seamlessly crawls up the sides of these 3D rows. Get that dark in there. Oh, there's a fan on. There we go. That's probably better. Okay, that's better. I'm seeing some of this lighter green crawl up the sides into there. Here's the darker. And lighter. Right now I'm just putting it in light with a light touch. This was the phthalo and the derylide. It's a little bit darker. I can't say never to anything, but it's been a while since I painted dill, and I have never painted a dill field before. So I'm just going to build up my colors and textures as I go. Lighter, I'm going from darker to lighter, and where the dark kind of goes up the sides of these stacks of dill, I'll soften those edges a little bit, put in some textures. There's all kinds of texture in there, and I want it. But I'm putting these textures in kind of randomly. They will get covered up. They'll just create a little shadow on here. Here's where I want that bright yellow, right here. And again, this is a this is the block-in. Details come later. Then there's really dark. And then the mid. And this down here is dark but cool. Oh, this is so much fun. This is wider. And it will get the lighter yellow-green on it momentarily. That yellow of the tops comes all the way past here. I'm going to put in with I block in my sky to get it in. You have this orange color. It might need to go just a little more, have a little more strength to it to make it show up. And it needs to be there. That orange sky really needs to be there. It was so beautiful. And above that is that greenish color I'm seeing. Maybe even a little more green. Ooh, too much. Boy, you know when you have too much. A little phthalo in there. That'll be enough for now. I just really wanted to get that idea in here, and then I'm going to overlap the trees. Again, bring them back in
overlapping. Here's that dark color I made with anthraquinone and yellow oxide and a touch of red, maybe a touch more of red. What I wanted was for the edge of the trees to have a moment where they just got soft in the sky. And there is some light on the trees. I will get to that right as soon as I get the silhouette of these guys in. I'll get to the light on them. There is a really orangey, yellowy green orange color, orange, that is making up the light on the sides of the trees. I don't want it to come too far, value-wise, too far apart, because it'll break up the shape of the tree and make it look like a bunch of different things instead of one thing. And I do want these trees to sit in the background and not make a big fuss. What they're doing for me is creating this backdrop, giving some context to this farm, creating interest up here, and creating a balance to this great big barn. But if I detail them too much right now, the focus is going to be on them. I'll just run that one right off the top. The focus is going to be on them instead of on the barn, and I want the focus to shift over here. So that's my thought, and we'll see if I can pull that off. I made this tree a little bigger. All right. Color of the barn in shadow. Here we go. That's better. That's the anthraquinone and white. We don't need that line on there. But we do need these angles. They're so important. If I have to cover up where I marked where the windows go, I will cover it up. I want to make sure I get these angles. They're so important. Now there's a darker shadow that is the cast shadow of the silo. Okay, the lit side of the silo is this yellow, and I need to get the trees right up next to it to make that show up. A lot of the shadow, especially down below, is this red violet. And what's happening is the light is bouncing off the side of the barn and onto the metallic sides of the silo, creating some reflected light on here, making this just glow. It's bluer up here because there's not reflected light happening. The reflected light is happening down lower. The other thing that's happening is the turning plane, and that means the part that's turning from light to shadow is orange, this turning plane. And I might have to let that dry for a minute or put this in a lot heavier. That turning plane is orange. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush in just a minute after I finish blocking in all this other stuff. Now that the big block-in is done, I can see where things are starting to dry too dark and too muddy. So I can get my smaller brush out, and I'm going to start working on bringing up the lights in these rows, getting the sky not to be muddy, working on whatever this sprinklery stuff is. It's just underwash right now. I'm gonna just put a blue shadowy thing on here for now, and we'll work on what we can do with it later. I want to block in as much as I can. I'm taking some of the colors of the trees, and while this spray stuff is still wet, putting some of it down here to make it look a little translucent. Some of this water is in shadow, some is in light. All right, now I'm going to work on this for a while, and then we'll get to the barn and beyond. There is a little landform back here. I think this is Washington State across the river back there. Could be. Just popping that in. And now these lights. I'm going to mix up a bunch more. And lay it on the top with some orange. Why? Because the light is orange. And make sure that I'm going smaller. From bigger brush strokes to smaller, that's going to help the illusion of depth. Getting these transitional colors in. I don't want hard edges in here. I want it to be soft and organic. I want most of the attention over here. This is just going to act as a way to lead the eye into the action without it being overwhelming. So cool that color down just a little bit. And then I'll lighten. And when I get there, when I get to the point where I'm doing it, I will add more detail. But right now, I'm just making this a simple thing and make it kind of go away a little bit. Dark, really dark right down here, and really dark right in here. Then I'm going to need some of that mid-value green that I messed up. Here we go. Just get those two colors of blue with my yellow, and we're good. There's that mid-value green. I'm going to put it on nice and thick. And guess what I'm going to switch to in a moment when I get this lighter color in and I don't have hard edges. I'm going to switch to my color shaper because it's so good at creating this textural surface that I'm looking for. But as you can see what's happening to these rows as I'm layering on the lights, they're starting to get that three-dimensional look, and that's what I want. That 3D look. This one is really light.
but it's not a solid swath of light. Now I'm going to remember where there's my vanishing point. So I want things to get smaller as they go back in space. And if I've lost my lines, I'll just reconnect with that idea of that line. You can see what's happening. Let's see, this second one over is more up, and it has a lot of light in it. It's just catching a ton of light. Adding those textural things that are going to get covered up. This one has a lot of light in it too, but it's catching it more on this side. There's a little jump and then light. Getting smaller, and there's a little wiggle in the row. Getting a little darker. There's room for more light on top. One of the nice things about this dill is that you cannot see the individual dill tops or fronds except for just a couple. And when I add those in later on, it might add a whole new dimension to the feel of this painting. Let's see, there's a line of light that kind of comes across here. Things fill in. Oh, this is fun. I'm going to go back and get some cleaner, lighter color for the sky and do a little negative shape painting on those trees. Rinse my brush. Once it's rinsed, I wipe it down really hard. You can see there's a lot more green in there. Rinse again. Wipe. That should be good. Yeah, nothing's coming out now. Nothing bad is coming out. Take some of this light. There we go, lighter. And I'm just kind of using this to eat away at some of the little holes in the trees. I'm not going to punch these full of holes. They're going to look like buckshot got to them. Just a few little places of light coming through. Lacing up the edges so they're not quite so harsh. And cleaning up the sky. A threefold job here. Reduce this tree a little. Add a few holes of light. And maybe some of that color coming from the land behind. Just a little bit, but not much, because what we've got is that gray roof that I totally ignored. A dark gray roof. So to make a gray, I just do purple. I don't do it all the time because it depends on the color of gray. I'm making a purple and green. There's a little tiny pop of the color of the land behind coming through under there. Color shaper. Now, when I get out this color shaper, I really end up using a lot of paint. But what I want to do is use the straight edge of it and reclaim the straight edge of that silo. Find the light on the side of this barn. Now, I need to mix up a ton of beautiful color, a ton of light, because this is so textural and beautiful. And that's what I want, is to find that beautiful textural surface. This will stay wet a lot longer than a brush mark as well. So I'm going to come in and just, the way I'm making textures with this tool, now you don't have to use this tool. You can use a palette knife, a paintbrush, your fingers, anything you want. I know lots of people who've attempted finger painting and to varying success, but one lady just is the master finger painter of all times, and you can do it. I will often get in there with my fingers and start messing around. But already we can see how that texture is adding depth. The texture is adding depth. And I can use the corner, which is very sharp, and I can draw through some details if I want. I can lay in details if I want. This is the third one over. And I'm sort of seeing these rows of dill kind of, I'm seeing these rows of dills looping like this, arcing. And I'm trying to find that rhythm of that arc with my hand, with the shape of my hand. They're doing it more in here. And then there's more individual, this over here. It's not all just a big sheet of one color. There's little shadows coming in, little imperfections and irregularities. Which is something that makes this so beautiful. And I'm trying to remember in the deepest parts to get some of that purple color in, because it's going to exaggerate the color of the setting sun and the evening light. As will pops of orange. If I could just get even a fraction of the beautiful light I felt last night taking this photograph out here in this beautiful field. I ran onto private property with my camera, hoping I wouldn't get chased away with a shotgun, and I didn't. Which is good. But I needed this angle, and to do that I had to run up a dirt road. Have my husband, there was no place to park, there's no pullouts along the road, which is typical of farmland. There's not a lot of pullouts. So he had to, find a little wide spot in the road further down, and I ran out with my camera and found this dirt road where I could get this angle. Ooh, I'm gonna have to put up more Dear Live Yellow. Did you see the giant ball of it I had out there? And I'm almost used up. But the painting just is what it is. It needs what it needs, and I'm gonna give it to it.
Getting these rows of dill just right is gonna probably take up most of my painting time. Getting them to look three-dimensional, like they are not just flat lines on the surface, is important.
Trying to be sensitive to the direction of the form of things with my brush. Not trying to copy it directly, but I'm just trying to be sensitive to it. If something's lifting up, I'm mostly trying to bring uplifting marks. If something's going across, I'm trying to make marks that go across. There's a lot of shadow back over here because the sunlight's coming from here. But then everything gets covered up with plants. There's a couple of small things yet to do on the barn, so I'm going to let this set up in a minute. I will continue for a minute more with my color shaper while these colors are still wet, so that I can do the thing that I like to see on my paintings. If you don't like this kind of texture on your paintings, don't put it in. The whole reason for my tutorial here is to show you how I do it, not to show you how to do it. Giving you a direction you might want to utilize for a while till you find your own, but it's not meant to be, this is how you do it. This is meant to say, this is how I do it, and you are welcome to copy how I do it, or find your own direction. Either way is fine, and it's the only way to advance yourself artistically, is to find out what you want to say with your painting and who you are as an artist. Hard to do with a copied piece, and yet not impossible. And also, hopefully this image is inspiring enough that it'll make you feel like you're out there in the evening light, that you're right there with me. Because why not? That would have been so fun, right? All right, I am going to mix up a deeper red-brown color. So blue and orange with it mostly red, because that's the color I see here on the top of the roof. And just slivers of it though. Here's the angle of that edge. Getting those angles in is really important to me. There's a big flat surface, but there are sprinklers kind of coming up across, and I like that. Those sprinklers are still sprinkling. I'm going to add a small I see it. It's just not very evident. A small line here. The color of the shadow as it comes up the side of the wall is different than where it goes across the top of the roof, because it's reflecting back, the light's bouncing back and forth. I really am excited about the reflected light on the side of the silo. That's much thinner. There's a little tiny bit of light beaming right there. These get closer together and smaller as they go back. But I just wanted to indicate them. I didn't want to really go after them. Little things, there's little things here and there that I can do to add more interest and more flavor to this farm. Like that little thing there. All right, more. Honestly, I could do this for hours. I love this stuff. I love going back in with my brush and then coming back in again with the color shaper. I love finding where the shapes collide and become one big shape, and then finding where there's a little tiny detail that explains what's going on. So, and often I get caught up in this and will overwork. Go figure. I bet you don't do that. And so one of the things I need to do is, even though I'm enjoying this process so much, is just put my brush down for a little while and see what else needs to be done. So I will do that. I'm going to give myself a couple more minutes, like 2 or 3 more minutes here, just to thicken up paint, to add a little bit more lively. To me, the thick paint brings things that you want forward, and thin paint pushes things that you don't want forward to the back. So when I thicken up some paint, it just helps bring something into more interest. And hopefully I didn't wreck it, because then I'll have to figure out a way to thin the paint. But I do like those strokes, so. So just trying to find subtleties that enhance the obvious where possible If it's not possible, then I need to stop. When I stop making improvements and forward motion, when it starts to stall out and I'm just, painting in a frenzy to see if I can fix something, that's when I know it's time to stop this, really. And just let it sit. Let my emotions simmer down a little bit. Stop flailing and become intentional. I've never seen flailing help a painting, my own or anyone else's. It only just makes a mess of what you've done. So for me, in everything I can do that I understand that I can do, there's my dot right there. Everything I can do that is understandable, I will do. That makes sense and that aids the overall look. Whatever I'm doing that's taking away from the overall look, I must stop. Then nature gives me some handy clues. And if I pay attention to those handy clues, I might be able to figure out better ways of dealing with some of the problematic areas. The main thing I'm going to add is those little shafts of light that are hitting the top tufts of a few things. And I'm seeing some pops of orange in some of these spaces, especially closer in, that help draw this orange around through the whole painting. That was too much. A pop. Not a glob. Okay. One more little mark here. Shadow on there. I think I'm going to just make a line there as if the door was slightly ajar. Couple more little pops of orange, describing that evening sunsetting light. And now, really honest folks, now I'm going to let it sit for a little while and then see if there's anything else I can do that will make it a better painting. So maybe there's just a little bit more to do here. I let this dry for a while. It's all dry now. There's a couple of little spots of weirdness. Everything's darkened to as dark as it's going to, so there's a little bit of muddiness here. I'll fix that. This needs just a little bit of definition. Some dark coming across this way, and that'll also help bring the eye in. And a few little dark spots, and then a few little thick spots to make it be part of the rest of the painting and not feel like it got left out. Just taking some of this color and a tiny touch of that red, more of this warm yellow I created, and a little bit more white. I want that sky to be really translucent and to go back in space. It is warm. It is orangey. An orangey pink, but I really want it to go back in space, and it got just a touch murky. Oh, that looks better. It's falling back, like it's going away. There's this fine line between brilliant color and having something just fade into the distance. Oh, I like that. To me, that goes back now. I'm not sure how anyone else feels about it, but it definitely has a feeling of retreating. A few more marks. Just breaking up the space and breaking up the space where it's not like hard edges. I have too many spaces where my brush mark left a hard edge, and what I'd really like to do is not have those hard edges there. Then there's just a little bit more of something here that got left out. Too light. Wow, you should have smelled this. Oh my goodness. The smell of it, of the dill that had been in, it had been a really, really hot day. And the smell of the dill field was just amazing. A little bit more light right up on top. This is the one that finally makes it all the way to the end. Then there is just a little bit of a dark edge in here. And I think that will help pull the eye back a little bit as well. Remember, these don't end in a fine point because our vanishing point is up here. A little bit more light right in the center on the top of these mounds. There's more light streaming this direction. Just get a little bit more light on the top of those mounds and I am going to call it good. Right where the sunlight, that late afternoon sunlight, is hitting full on strong. This is bigger here, wider. Oh no, my video had cut out. I'm voicing over this part.
I only did a few more brush strokes. I hope you don't miss it, but somehow the video just stopped playing. So here's the finished demo. This demo was really a lot about painting in perspective, and I hope you got some good tools and tips and insights in how to do that. I really had fun doing this, and I hope you have fun painting with me.
All right.
That was fun.
Yeah,
It's
fantastic.
It's not often I can take a painting all the way to the end of the line, and I did. I mean, to the tedious end of the line, and finally my camera said, "You've done enough. Just stop, would you?"
Yeah, it turned out really well, and I know you were super happy with this painting, Diana.
I was. It felt like when I stood there. To me, the painting captured the feeling that of me, trespassing on somebody's property, waiting for the shotguns to come out, but really feeling the smell of the dill and the late afternoon, starting to cool down after a hot day. It was all there, and I felt it. So to me, that's a success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so now that the demo is over, we're going to take some time to answer some questions from you guys. So if you have any questions you'd like to answer Diana or ask Diana, throw them out there and we will be sure to get to them. Anita Sue, lovely, great fun to watch, learned a lot. Thanks, Diana and Peter.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Love this demo. Someone did ask earlier. Let's see, where was that? Oh, this may seem silly, but something I'm wondering about. I learned a lot from your perspective lesson. And they said, thank you. Why not use tracing paper when painting from a photo? No disrespect, just wondering, I assume is what they mean.
Yeah, anything's good. If you can size your photos to the size of your canvas and you want to use tracing paper, that's great. And sometimes I do it like with a really tricky image. I'll do anything. I'll do anything to get the image, but it's always good to have these drawing skills in your hand in case you're in a place where you don't have that ability, or you don't have the tracing paper, or you're doing a giant canvas that you need to. So just having the skill, even if you always use tracing paper, just having the skill in your hands is a great tool, great idea.
Yeah, totally. When storing art, what is meant by letting it breathe?
Well, acrylics look like they're dry in minutes, and I went onto the Golden website to find out about storing because I'd had some questions about it. And it turns out that thick acrylics will take up to 6 months to dry inside under that hard skin that feels dry. So you just leave it propped where it can get air around it. And that's called letting it breathe. And what that does is it allows time for the paint inside, the wet paint inside, to respirate out and to dry. Then once that's done, you can safely store it in a plastic bag, which is what I do. I put all my dried paintings in plastic bags so they don't get scratched or dirty or spiders or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
But letting it breathe is just giving it time for the paint to fully dry.
That's crazy. I never even knew that.
I didn't until this summer. But I've always let my paintings just kind of sit around,
Yeah.
So I kind of inadvertently let them breathe. But yeah, that's the official word from the Golden website.
Cool. What size was your canvas?
It was 12 by 16. That's about the size that fits on my painting board under my camera really well. I will try some bigger pieces, but it takes a lot of camera fiddling to make it happen.
Gotcha. What can replace dire light yellow? A couple people asked this.
Yeah, cadmium yellow deep. really works. Or you can take your cadmium yellow medium and add some red to it. It's kind of cadmium, diarylide yellow is kind of a shortcut to yellow orange. I just saw someone asked, can you have multiple vanishing points on a picture? Oh, yes, you can.
Yep.
Oh, you can have infinity vanishing points if you take like some little kids' blocks and dump them on the floor, every single block, because they're all twisted this way and that. Every single block would have a different vanishing point. I
Yep.
like to keep it simple, just a couple per painting.
Yeah. Yeah. Perspective is quite a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
But
it is.
yes.
And I used to do that because in high school, I just thought it was fun. So I would
Right.
do that for fun. But not everyone thinks that's fun. So,
Yes, for sure.
yeah.
Uh, um, yeah, they have, and I'm sure you know this, Diana, but they have, you can do like 4 or 5 point perspective where it's like a fisheye, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of things you can do once you're good at regular perspective, once you kind of
Yes.
get the whole idea of it, to change reality, to warp reality and alter what you're seeing to something more internal and still make it look like 3 dimension and
Yeah.
look staring down through space. Salvador Dali did a lot of work with crazy perspectives to change the way you saw reality. It was really cool.
That is really cool. There's also bird's eye and worm's eye. Says Amy.
Oh,
Love the tutorial. Thanks, Diana.
mhm.
To use an isolation coat, please explain what that is and why use it.
I went and got it. Golden has a product. It says isolation coat on it. And what that does is it seals the surface of your paint down. Acrylic paint can be lifted off with rubbing alcohol, anything alcohol based, and it can destroy your painting. This is impervious to that. You can't remove the paint anymore. It seals it flat. And then when that's dry, if you put a removable coat of varnish over it, that makes your painting what's called archival, which means if the varnish gets damaged, if it's in a smoky room or there's someone puts it under where there's a bunch of spiders, or whatever, that top coat of varnish can be removed, but it has to be removed with something with alcohol in it. If you don't have this on underneath the varnish, your painting will be destroyed in the removing of the top coat of varnish. So that double layer of protection protects from scratches, protects from stains. The outer varnish has a UV protectant in it, so it protects from yellowing and fading. And it just basically creates an overall uniform sheen on your painting. That's beautiful. So there you go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Laura says, I have a yellow oxide and Liquitex Basics. Will that suffice?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Liquitex Basics is an inexpensive paint made for people who are doing crafting or starting out. But if you find it color satisfactory and it's rich enough for you, then it's fine. If you find the color is just not rich enough, you can always switch to the reason paints are expensive is because they have expensive pigment in them.
Yeah.
So you can always switch to a more expensive or more rich professional paint later on if you find your results are rewarding. And that's what happened with me. I had cheap acrylics when I started and they just looked dull and dingy. And then I switched to some goldens and I went,
Yeah.
it wasn't me. It really wasn't me. It was the paint.
For sure. Especially with yellow, white, and orange. Those three.
Yeah.
They're usually a little iffy in student grade, but yeah. Someone said, basically, how long do you wait after the painting to do the isolation coat?
I wait till it's dry to the touch, usually 24 to 48 hours. It can
Cool.
still dry out from the inside. That doesn't stop it from drying. So
If you've already
and
varnished, you put the ice. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, Barbara, I don't know the answer to that. That might be a question that you take onto the Golden website and goldenpaints.com or whatever and post one of their professionals because they've got it all worked out. They have scientists, not just dumb artists who learn by mistake.
For sure.
So go there and learn from the science guys. Yeah.
What is a good substitute for quinacridone blue?
I think you mean anthraquinine blue.
Yeah.
And Cynthia Richardson was saying, "Oh dear, I'm not remembering the name of that blue now. Something hue." When I discovered anthraquinine or Indian throne blue, it was like a game changer for me. I used to mix ultramarine and phthalo together with a touch of orange that gave me that smoky blue. But anthraquinine blue just is a beautiful smoky blue. It doesn't lean. Ultramarine leans purple. Phthalo blue green shade leans turquoise. This doesn't lean either direction, but it's softly muted. Prussian blue, thank you. Prussian blue hue, Cynthia Richardson was saying, is a pretty good substitute because it's also a little bit muted. But I fell in love with that anthraquinine or Indian throne, and it does make the most beautiful, like greens. It's just, yeah, they're not too bright. The greens are just lovely and natural looking. So
That's cool.
Yeah.
How many coats of varnish do you use?
Normally one over top of the isolation coat. But if it's not uniform, if the surface isn't a uniform sheen, I'll add a second coat, waiting 24 hours or to 48 hours again between coats.
Yeah. Should I put on an isolation coat on an MDF board before gessoing?
That's a good question. Also a question for the science guys. Yeah. My boards are already come pre-gessoed, so I think you should ask someone more knowledgeable in that.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure Jed has just gessoed on the top of an MDF board and painted on. I don't think he does isolation coats on those. You should be fine with a layer of gesso or a couple layers.
Yeah, gesso is meant to cover, but I've heard some people say something yellowish comes up through, but I don't know if it's ever happened. I'm seeing that Amy Pack is asking if I use an open medium when painting outside. And you know what I do? I get open white. So I don't have to have an extra medium. I was using an open medium in my plein air demo last spring. And since then, I've done a bunch of plein air paintings. And it's just so much easier to get a little tube of open white, put that on your palette. And then white mixes into everything when you're plein air painting. And it extends like my painting. I'll get it. I just did a painting 2 days ago. Here it is. This plein air painting I did two days ago. And it took 24 hours to dry because I used, here we go. I used an open white.
Wow.
So I could really blend and get that sky nice. So that was really fun to do.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I didn't have to bring extra stuff. That was the main thing. I hate, I have to put on a backpack and hike out there, and I hate bringing anything that's extra weight, even a little too, whatever. So the white was great.
Awesome. Let's see. We will see if any others trickle in. Lizzie says, what does the isolation coat do? Diana talked about that earlier in the stream. I'm assuming you're probably behind a little bit. Just finish watching the stream. Diana talks about that. So I think unless we have any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you guys. Thank you, Diana, for joining us for this.
And next month, we're going to do some colors of autumn. And I have some great tips for creating those beautiful autumn colors for next month. I am going to wait to get my reference photo till colors start changing around here, though, because I like it fresh, don't you? I love the fresh still, and I want my photo to be fresh for you.
I love it. That's fantastic, guys. You have no idea how much effort Dianna puts in to everything she does for you guys. She's truly a total gem, and we're so lucky to have her. So thank you, Dianna.
Oh, you're welcome. This is such a joy for me. I love sharing this with everyone. And you know what I love, Peter, is I love simplifying those complex ideas that everyone heard about and got confused about. I love putting it into terms, visual terms, and make it understandable so you can just pick it up and use it and not have to break your
Absolutely.
brain over it. Yeah. That's the
Absolutely.
joy for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right,
Okay. Well,
guys. Thank you so much. You were loved and believed in. We will see you next week for guest artist with Samantha Williams Chapelsky. That will be good fun. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And best of luck, guys. Bye, everybody.
bye.